As our world changes, we'll keep you up to date with the latest information. News Talk KVNU, 102 FM, 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Roof Rescue. A 37-year-old man has been arrested and charged with allegedly molesting a 15-year-old girl, according to police. Stephen Anthony Hernandez was booked Saturday into the Cache County Jail. According to the arrest affidavit, North Park police officers received a report of the sex offense on July 1st. The alleged victim's mother explained that her daughter had been molested by Hernandez. The 15-year-old girl was later interviewed by forensic investigators at the Cache Children's Justice Center. She stated that Hernandez, a family acquaintance, had come into her room and touched her inappropriately. The incidents had occurred over the last few days while her mother was out of town. Police later questioned Hernandez. He stated that the alleged victim had instigated the recent incidents. He then requested an attorney. Court records show Hernandez was arraigned in First District Court Tuesday, appearing for the virtual hearing from jail. He was charged with 3 counts of forcible sexual abuse, a second-degree felony. Judge Spencer Walsh set bail for Hernandez at $50,000 and ordered him to have no contact with the alleged victim. Another court hearing was scheduled for July 13th. Hernandez is out of jail on pretrial supervision. He could face up to 15 years in prison if convicted. One person was taken to the hospital and a vehicle ended up in a canal after an accident in Pocatello Tuesday afternoon. It happened around 2:30 p.m. when a Pontiac Grand Prix swerved off of Highline and entered the canal, flipped, and came to rest upside down in the water. The driver was pulled from the car by an officer with the Pocatello Police Department and by several citizens who witnessed the accident and stopped to assist. CPR was performed on the driver. She was taken to Port Neif Medical Center, her condition unknown. Pocatello police closed Highline between McCormick Street and Meadowbrook Lane while they investigated the accident and let a tow company retrieve the vehicle from the canal. They were assisted by Idaho State Police, who used a drone to map out and take pictures of the accident scene. It's time for Garland Days again, and this year's celebration will be held from now until Saturday at the Garland City Park. This is the 92nd year, the celebration of the town of some 2,500 residents named for William Garland, who with 7,000 men dug the canals in and around the town. Jeanette Atkinson of the Garland City Council oversees the festivities and said Friday and Saturday are packed with great family entertainment. The city celebration begins today with a children's play, The Newsies, which runs through Friday at different times on different days. A host of activities will begin at 4 p.m. on Friday, including a children's parade, a Little Miss and Little Mister contest, and a mountain country band concert. There will also be a youth 9-square tournament. Saturday brings food trucks, carnival games, bounce houses, pickleball tournaments, the city scavenger hunt, and a foam party. There will be an award ceremony at 8:30 where the Garland Youth Council will be announced. The evening will bring the celebration to a close with Ty Peebley in concert at 4 p.m., Rough Stock doing a show at 7:30, and then a fireworks show at dark. Mostly clear tonight, low around 60. Southwest winds 10 to 20 miles an hour early this evening. Sunny, lower 90s. Southwest winds tomorrow 10 to 20 and mid-90s on Friday. Weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Don't pay for the expense of dry cleaning when you can clean your items at Mount Logan Laundry for much less. Located at 500 East, 900 North in Logan, Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi. Also located at 1st East, 7th South in Brigham City. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Remember when you were a kid and used to help your dad out with projects? He would say,
"My roof, my rules."
You grew up, bought your own roof, and made your own rules. Then your roof started leaking. But that's okay because your dad said he would help you fix it.
Oh, watch out.
It was a great father-son bonding experience right up until you realized you were in over your heads and the roof didn't get fixed.
Don't risk your safety and your home's protection from the elements. Contact Roof Rescue's certified professionals at roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
The station for news and talk. KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
July 12th and 13th are Amazon Prime Days. Oh yes, you can buy lots of things on Amazon. It ships quickly right to your door. But there are some things Amazon doesn't do. They don't support our local community. They don't donate to our local clubs, organizations, youth, or schools. We should all shop local when we can. Local business is the backbone of our community. They keep us employed. In fact, small business is Cache Valley's largest employer. Local business supports and donates to our local economy. Given the opportunity, when you shop local, you find prices just as good and often better than Amazon, and with superior service. Whether you buy from Amazon or not won't make a difference in their success, but it will make a big difference in our community when you shop local.
Believe it or not, a high-quality furnace air filter will reduce the amount of dust and pollen carelessly floating around in your home. John at the Duck Hunter says, always buy a higher quality air filter. If you can see through a filter, you probably should pass on it. If you're not sure about which furnace air filter to buy, give John a call. He only carries the highest quality, which will reduce the dust and pollen in your home. For a free consultation, call the Duck Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duck Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
There's nothing like hearing the songs you love on local radio with no subscriptions and no monthly fees. But there's a new bill in Congress that could stop the music. If passed, this bill would tax your local radio station simply to play the music you love. Text LOCAL to 52886 and ask Congress to support local radio stations. Help us keep you connected to the music, local news, weather, and traffic that you need each day. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
If you're near retirement or thinking about retiring, you probably have questions. How do you make your savings last? How much should you take out and when? You're ready for retirement, but are your finances? Your Edward Jones financial advisor can help you build a strategy to help your finances keep up with your long-term needs. You've done what it takes to get there. Now it's time to make the most of retirement. Call one of the 7 Edward Jones branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Hour 2 of today's show. It is Wednesday, July 6th. I'm Jason Williams. Bill Walter here in the studio as well. And we scooted the troublemakers out, Lisa and Blake, as they're known. Congressman Blake Moore was our guest. If you missed it, podcast will be available later on this evening. And watch for a story on CacheValleyDaily.com as well. But new district outreach director, Lisa Ross Kelly, joined him. We talked about the debt and deficit task force and a pretty big appointment for the congressman to the House Deficit Committee. This is, a pretty big deal. The announcement came the day before Election Day, so it kind of got lost in the cycle. But now we're shifting gears and bringing things from district level back down to the county level. It's time for our monthly installment of the County Hour with Cache County Executive David Zook joining us here in the studio. And this week he brought a friend, Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister, joining us as well. And Craig brought a gigantic box of documents and paper clips. And I see pie charts. I see long lists with dollar signs and things like that. So we'll have no shortage of things to talk about. Executive Zook, though, I wanted to start off quickly. I've been thinking this in my head, 3 of these episodes over, and I keep forgetting because I wait until the end. But I wanted to start with this and actually just shout a quick thank you to both you, Janine, the administrator there at the county. Bill and I were joking about this. We've been doing this for 3 county executives now. This dates back, this monthly segment dates back to Lynn Lemon
Wow.
And we started with him and Craig Butters. Although I have to admit, Butters was pretty hit and miss. He was a busy guy. That or he just didn't like it. He did actually confess to me one time that he wasn't a huge fan of the spotlight. It made him nervous. But I appreciate the time that goes into this because it's taking an hour out of your day. Even just once a month. I know that you all have a lot going on there at the county. You've been elected to do jobs, but to make the time to communicate with our listeners and with the public here in Cache Valley on a regular basis is it's something easy to just kind of forget the value of. But it's a very valuable thing, and we get feedback from our listeners all the time, just hammering that home. So I just wanted to a personal thank you to you and everyone at the county that makes this happen.
Well, I want to thank you,
so.
Jason. Thanks for providing this forum for us to help us to get the word out to the people we work for.
Yeah,
we're
it's my
here,
pleasure.
We work for the people, and I believe we have a responsibility to let them know what we're doing, what we're working on, what our priorities are, and the radio is a great way to get the word out. Thank you for helping us to communicate with our constituents.
Well, it's our pleasure. It gives us an opportunity to dig into, like I mentioned, did you see this box he brought with him?
The people can't see it.
No,
you got to describe it. It's like it's a foot high.
Yeah, it's
2.5 feet.
At least
wide,
2.5 feet long, and this is a filing box basically, chock full of documents, paper. Craig, your office is one of the least talked about offices, not just yours, but treasurers in general. Least talked about. In fact, we did a little experiment with our listeners once and asked them to name the state treasurer. No one ever can. But this is, I think, one of the most important offices within county level government, any governing body. But this is also difficult, right?
Well,
there's never a moment of peace. Is that a fair thing to say?
Well, when taxpayers are upset, they do
Sure.
stop by my office at the very end, and so the buck does stop in the treasurer's office.
Sure,
literally.
And people know that at least, right? Even though they might forget, you don't make the decisions on how much that check has to be.
We do a lot of teaching, and we do a lot of explaining and reasoning and helping people understand. That's part of my job. And so that's the delight also, is when you get someone who comes in who is upset because their value went up, their taxes went up, why do I have to pay to the schools? All the questions that everyone always has. But it's nice to at least be able to explain the why. And they may not agree with it, but at least they understand the why, so that it helps them to know what process they can take to get relief or some help or some other options. But let me tell you about this box that your radio.
It's a gigantic box.
It is. Radio gets results. So again, a thank you from me.
Thank you.
Because when tax season comes, it's high energy. And in fact, Jason, today marks 99 days until when taxes are due. We have 99 days until the tax notice is due. There are 99 working days, that is. There's 147 days to go, and I track all that type of thing.
You have to, right? You have to know.
You just have to
the
know what's
ticking
happening.
clock on all of this, right?
But this box that you see are some tax returns. We worked these, and this was our return mail. So put that in perspective.
Okay.
Everyone that was in that box years ago did not get their tax notice.
Okay.
So
these were letters that were sent that bounced back.
That bounced back. Everyone has a yellow sticker on it that people are familiar with the Postal Service.
Sure.
But now I want to show, and in your description, this is last year's return.
Oh, wow.
It's a wow. It really is a cool. We're going from an elastic that's less than a centimeter if you squeeze it.
Yeah.
We're talking about maybe 8 to 10 returns.
That's impressive.
So you look at what we've done is we've given people the opportunity to make that choice.
Okay.
These people that were in this box, they didn't get their tax notice because it got back to us, and we already have that information as the county.
Sure.
And so by giving them and working hard at getting addresses correct, you're getting the delinquency that's come down significantly.
That's
because
impressive.
People are getting their notices, and they're happier. And so with the few days that we have, and it's just crazy how quick it can be and come on us. but it keeps me up at night. And if we can do a lot of little things, that's a phrase in my office. If we can make a little bit of a change, the results are huge. And as shown by this box and these returned, that's one of the things that we've done that has been really, really
that's impressive,
helpful to our everyone.
It also says, when you contrast this 2.5 feet long, a foot plus wide box full of paper, and that half an inch stack there, you contrast those two, it tells you delinquencies weren't intentional.
There are some counties, though, that the treasurer wants there to be delinquency.
Sure.
Because there's penalties, interest.
Sure.
And so then those are distributed. Those are extra funds. My view on it, though, is that you give everyone the choice, and then they choose to make that. And if they pay late, then they pay the penalty.
Sure.
But we just barely sent our latest delinquency card out, and as a number, we had 296.
Oh, wow.
So
that's
you take
a vast reduction.
50,000 parcels. You go a year before, we were 454, so we almost split it from last year to this year.
Yeah.
2019, 788 were delinquency in our summer, well over 1,000 in years past. So by bringing that down, again, it just helps people to make, and then they're happier.
Sure.
Could we talk about something also that is very important, I think, for, again, people? One of the things that the treasurer's office gives is people can make payments through the year.
Sure.
And so we have a
So it's not
coupon
one
book.
lump sum.
Exactly. Because values, everyone's hearing in the news that the values are going up.
Yeah.
Values are going up. And taxes will, again, follow suit. But this is a great way for people to budget.
Sure.
So that it's not all due in November 30th, because they're always due on November 30th. If it's a day late, there is a penalty. It is a 1% penalty. Or $10, whichever is greater. If it goes past January 31st, that penalty changes to 2.5%.
Oh, wow.
Plus interest. And so all of those things are attempted to be put on your tax notice to give information, but that's why it's so important to read the tax notice.
Sure.
There are lots of people that don't read the tax notice. And so we're working on different things also using other electronic means, email, text messaging, and texting is something we're working on so that people can have information about that. But there are people that have followed this coupon book that right now they're well past halfway. And some people that have historically been on my problem list of a tax sale, in my office I said, can you believe, and I would insert this person's name, they've got a prepayment for next year even.
That's interesting.
And they were, historically, I was calling and almost knocking at their door to say, hey, we've got to get this resolved or we're going to sell your property.
Sure.
So the happiness factor of them to know that they're ahead of the game and not paying interest, not paying penalty.
That's interesting.
So that's an option that can save people money.
And a lot of people don't know that is an option, that you can actually pay ahead a certain amount to, instead of that big bill in November. That
another change that we've done is that historically we couldn't track the overpayments. It was done by hand.
Oh.
Those are all now taken care of. The gentleman that came in earlier to my office even today, I showed that there was a rollover. Even the pennies get rolled over to the next year. So another thing that we can account and track those funds.
That's very nice.
But you mentioned the specialty of the treasurers. There's only 29 treasurers in Utah.
Yeah.
I went to
and yet you have to track like 140 organizations above you making tax decisions.
And
right?
the legislature, I mean, they're changing things and all of that.
That's right.
It is an important role that we represent not only the county, but the schools. We represent each of the cities that we have to distribute to. But that's why it's important that the treasurer be an elected position, because the people is who keeps me in office, and that I follow those oath of office is to follow the rules that are set, and that's why it's so important that we keep that as an elected position.
So how do you track? You know, you've got this 45-day legislative session, plus interim, plus special sessions.
Plus summer.
Yeah, and they can call themselves in the special session now, thankfully. But how do you keep track of that and how it impacts the school districts, the county, budgets throughout the county that are impacted by revenue changes at the state level? You have to be on top of all of that, and it's always changing.
We have 3 main conferences each year that the treasurers attend. 2 are done by the Utah Association of Counties.
Okay.
And then we have a summer conference that's just for the treasurers, and I was able to host all of the counties to come here this last week. And in those, we have legislative updates. We have representatives that represent the treasurers as we're trying to help, as we see things that are in error or problem, to try to change legislation. So we have representatives, we do Zoom meetings, but ultimately we talk one another, and in some senses we're unified, but in other small areas there is some diversity between the 29 different counties.
Sure.
But ultimately we all are required to collect and distribute those dear dollars, because that's what they are, is they're dear dollars.
This is fascinating, and to take a look inside this office, as complex as it is, an opportunity. Listeners, by the way, if you have questions, 753-5868. Here in the studio with us, Cache County Executive David Zook and Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister here for the County Hour with us until 6 if you'd like to join us, and we'll be back right after this.
The results are in for the 2022 Best of Northern Utah contest, presented by Campbell Snacks, home of Pepperidge Farm. Pick up your free copy of the Winners Magazine. Pickup locations are listed at bestofnorthernutah.com. Over 600,000 votes were cast to determine gold and silver winners in 185 business categories. Help congratulate these businesses, and let's support all of our local businesses. And thank you for participating in the 2022 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Mama, what does the chicken say? Dog. Cat. Giraffe.
Giraffe, really? Giraffe.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right.
Visit NHTSA.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Work, school, grocery shopping, doctor's appointments, the gym, to the airport to pick up loved ones, to the kids' soccer games, piano lessons, out for movie night, to hear your favorite band in the city, over to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and on last year's amazing road trip. Your vehicle takes you so many places. Protect it. When you leave your vehicle, remember to always take your keys or key fob with you and lock the doors. If you suspect auto theft, contact the National Insurance Crime Bureau at 1-800-TEL-NICB. That's 1-800-TEL-NICB, or visit our website at www.nicb.org. A public service message from the National Insurance Crime Bureau.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Joined in the studio by Cache County Executive David Zook and Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister. If you have a question for either of our guests this hour, 753-5868. We've been talking about what it takes. Just again, here on the radio it would be impossible to dig into every detail, as interesting as it would be. This is one of the most complex offices in county government throughout the state. And it is constantly changing and evolving. There are, no exaggeration, multiple entities above a county treasurer's office that make decisions that directly impact everything the county treasurer does, and they have to keep up on that. So fun to take a look into this, and then Executive Zook here with us as well, and David, you as the executive, oversee all this and watch these gears and cogs turning, and then oftentimes, you're the spokesperson for the county when it comes to we were talking about the legislature, Craig and I, to go to the legislature and say, hey, I just talked to the county treasurer and they're saying this and this. Are they responsive in general? I know our lawmakers are.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Ours definitely are. Of course, there are some who don't understand the issues sometimes, and we had that last time. We'll probably have that next time. Some laws. It's a delicate balance that our legislators have to find when they're trying to serve their constituents. They're trying to find ways to help people who are struggling with various issues, and to address that in a way that doesn't negatively impact somebody else is a difficult balance sometimes. We were just talking off the air about there's sometimes a push to change the way taxes are paid or not paid, and there's an impact on that. If the taxes aren't paid, then that's revenue that isn't there to be able to be used to fix your street, for example.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Literally.
Yeah.
So there are always consequences to actions. It's sometimes it seems simpler when you can, from the outside, say, well, just do it this way. And then when you jump in and you try to figure it out, you figure out what the impacts are going to be. Well, this is going to set this off balance. And I think another thing that maybe we should talk about, too, this is one of the most common questions I hear, is people get their tax notice and they don't understand where it's all going. It says Cache County on there, and so they think we're collecting all this money and we're just putting it into our coffers and using it for county services, but that's not necessarily the case. We collect taxes for everybody in every jurisdiction within the county. We collect for all the cities, we collect for the school districts, we collect for mosquito abatement districts. So I think that would be an interesting thing, Craig, if you could just tell us about what exactly is on this tax notice that people are getting.
So I brought an example. Each year we've changed the tax notice a little bit. And as we do a little bit of a change every single year, the intent is to try to make it easier.
Sure.
And many times I do get there's too much on there. You need more white space. But everything truly is intended to help and to clean up. So one of the things,
and everything's important too.
It is in a different way.
When I looked at mine last year, I'm like, all this is necessary.
So one of the things that this year that I'm doing, or that we as a county are doing, because that's the one thing that this office does have, is that there are many people that make this a success. It's not just a one-man show. That is for sure. But this being the tax notice, I'm grouping together the items that are retained by the county.
Okay.
Just an eye-opening type thing. Those things are kept by the county. Followed by that, there are things that are sent to the state. And then there are things that are, again, that are not necessarily, we are collecting it from the county, but they are not directly ours. And so hopefully that will streamline and make things a little bit easier for just the readability. And that's one of the changes that we're doing.
So people can see where the money's ending up.
Exactly. Which goes into what's going on this month. One of the things that as a county we're required to do is to send a valuation. So the valuation notices are going. The values have been set. And so rather than an envelope that you just file away and just don't open it up, there is important information. It is what the county values your property.
Sure.
And so it's so important to read it. There is some incredible information on there. So please do open it up. And if you've got a question, there's phone numbers that you can call, and what time the meetings are going to be held.
Sure.
And how you can appeal the value, what time frame that you have to appeal the value. Because many times what people will do is they'll get their tax notice and then they get it in November and they see the total amount that's due, and it's past the time at that time to appeal the value. The time has passed, and so the hands are tied.
Yeah.
The time to appeal the value is passed.
And those rules are set by the legislature.
Exactly.
You don't get to change those, right?
Exactly. But as far as the county, there are programs out there as well. Again, the tax notice is very important, but also there are programs that if I could just take just a second to introduce, just to remind people, you've talked about the veterans. The veterans, if there is a service-related percentage of disability, they get a reduction on their taxes.
Okay.
And if that reduction is enough, they can even get that on motor vehicles.
Interesting.
And so if there are veterans out there that do not know about that, which we hear every year, please come see the county. It's the auditor's office, room 112, that helps with that. But that's some reduction for if you're an armed service or if you're active duty. Those
Interesting.
Are one thing. Another that is very helpful for those seniors, those elderly, is something known as the circuit breaker. And the circuit breaker, you can be a widow of any age and qualify. If
Okay.
your income is less than, and it's set by the legislature this year, the income is $35,807.
Wow.
So if the household income of that home is less than that, so if you're just on Social Security,
Sure.
that's all you've got, then come in and fill out an application. Now, the county has to look at your income. That's
Sure.
you're asking for a reduction on your taxes.
You
and
have to
anytime
verify.
Exactly, but anytime taxes are reduced, it is shifted. There is a shift.
Sure.
But remember, though, we're helping our mothers, we're helping our
Yeah.
grandmothers. I've been in people's homes that truly, when we were trying to help them, she offered me a piece of pizza. And that was probably the only thing that she was going to be eating for the next week.
Yeah.
That was going to be strung out. And sometimes the choice is, do I buy my medicine? Do I buy food?
Sure.
Or do I pay my taxes? And so given that information that hey, you can get a reduction on your taxes, but you have
Yeah.
to fill out some information. But then you're also dealing with people in their age. So if you've got kids or if you've got parents that are in that situation, help them out. Help them fill that information out each year
Sure.
so that they can get that reduction on taxes. Because if it goes too long, it is too late in that regard. So
Okay.
I wanted to bring up just the veterans and the circuit breakers. Those are some other programs that do exist that can reduce the amount of taxes that you pay.
That's useful information.
So we've talked a couple of things. You can make prepayments. There are programs that do exist. You can appeal the value based on when we get the value that comes out.
Sure.
But I want to share with one other thing for us. If we were to look, and I took the liberty of finding your home, Jason, but we won't say the information in specific. But if I were to look at taxes that are personal,
Sure.
this year your rate is the lowest that it has been in over 2 decades. Since before 1999. The value, because as you know, values are going up.
Sure.
But your rate
The rate changes accordingly,
is
right?
going down. Now, then we have to bring back the legislative type decision. There's one thing that's going to be on your tax notice that we tried as treasurers to change, but everyone's going to see a pretty significant increase on the statewide school levy this year. So that would
Yeah.
be one line item that I'd look at. That it's set again based on a ruling, and so we don't. It's out of our control, but it's
Sure.
but it is there. But if we look, the rate right now for where you live is 0.008, and that's lower than where it was in 1999.
That's interesting.
So as we look at values increasing as what they are, we really are not telling things that are untrue as the values go up.
Sure.
Countywide,
The rate goes down.
The rate goes down because as we think about it, the entities, the school, the cities, they're entitled to get what they received last year.
Sure.
And so as these values in the market that people are paying those prices, so as a county we're required to be within market. That's
Oh,
our
sure.
job every single year.
Yeah.
So as those
It'd
values,
be irresponsible not to be, right?
well, if we don't, the state will come in and they'll take jurisdiction and
you
make
don't,
sure.
You don't want that.
Because taxes, even though taxes are painful, the intent that the county is wanting to do is to make that they're fair.
Sure.
We're not trying to penalize a business. We're not trying to penalize an individual.
Sure.
And if there's a problem, by all means, that's where we want to fix those. And that's where, as the taxpayer, we want to educate and help them to know how do we get those things taken care of if there is a problem.
And it starts with this. You mentioned the valuations going out. That's the first step in a process of, like you said, there's a window of appeal. There is, of course, we've got the 99 days until everything else starts. The legislature we can't do anything about really, but these, I think this is one of the important protections written into the system. This sliding rate with values. If the value goes up, the rate goes down, and that's to prevent shock, right?
Well, everyone wants their tax. Well, let's restate that a different way. If you sold your home today, you're delighted if
Sure.
you can sell it for more than what you bought it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
just did things right.
Sure.
But when it's the year to year, sometimes it's easier to do in little increments than all at once. And that county, again, there are multiple. The assessor assesses property each year, and they do a phenomenal job. again, then the rates are set, and then I get to be the buck stops.
That's right.
It stops with
You're
me.
the one that sends out the letters no one wants to get. But no, this is important stuff, and it is, I think, for most people, kind of a mysterious thing, too. We get these letters. We don't really understand why this is that, why this looks that way. So a pleasure to get to dig into this a little bit. And again, let me throw this out to listeners, 753-5868. If you have a question for our guests, here in the studio with us again, Cache County Executive David Zook and Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister. And we'll be back with more, our guests here in the studio after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:40, and the news is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. The Lyric Repertory Company has been shut down by a major outbreak of COVID-19. Lyric Artistic Director Richie Call confirmed that the Repertory Company has canceled all performances through Saturday, July 9th. Call said that they've just run out of understudies to perform, adding that both cast and crew have been stricken. He said, fortunately, the cases are mild so far. He said they're hoping that shutting down for 5 days and then putting everybody into face masks for 5 days will allow them to continue the season. When performances resume on July 13th, Call said that the lyric performers will be allowed to remove their masks while on stage. The canceled shows this week are Freaky Friday, which is scheduled for tonight, and then also Fences Thursday night at 7:30, the debut of Into the Breaches on Friday at 1 and 7:30, and Saturday at 1 p.m., and A Fox on the Fairway, which was scheduled to be performed on Saturday night. And you can contact the ticket office for a refund or a trade for later shows. The first probable case of monkeypox has been announced in Idaho. The Idaho Division of Public Health and Central District Health today said it appears this infection was acquired during travel to a country experiencing a monkeypox outbreak. The patient, who lives in the Central District Health area, is recovering. Most monkeypox patients experience fever, body aches, chills, and fatigue. People with more serious illness may develop a rash and lesions on the face and hands that can spread to other parts of the body. The disease is endemic in parts of Africa where people have been infected through bites from rodents or small animals. It does not usually spread easily among people. And Rudy Gobert reads Twitter comments, so he's aware that Minnesota fans did not like him very much during his first 9 NBA seasons. And he also heard Timberwolves coach Chris Finch complain regularly about the way he set screens. Those perspectives are probably going to change. The Timberwolves announced the acquisition of Gobert at a news conference in Minneapolis today. That's after the trade that they agreed to make with the Utah Jazz last week could finally become official. It took 4 players, 5 first-round picks, and the option of swapping another pick to get the French center to Minnesota. KVNU News Time is 5:43.
A building is just a building until it's your building. It's where you work, where you create, where you store your valuable equipment. You take pride in your building, so make sure it's built right and built to last. Northern Steel Buildings will guide you from concept to construction. For your commercial, agricultural, or industrial steel building, visit northernsteelbuilding.com to see their quality work or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concept to construction.
KVNU weather tonight, mostly clear, low around 60. Southwest winds 10 to 20 miles an hour early this evening. Sunny, hot, lower 90s tomorrow with those southwest winds. And then sunny, mid-90s on Friday. It's been to 88. It's 87 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. U&I wants to take a moment and say thank you for being such a good neighbor and friends. They live in a great valley, great country. U&I features lots of American-made brands, chairs by Southern Motion, Best, Franklin, and Lane. Speed Queen Appliances, Therapeutic Mattresses, always a better buy at U&I, 28 West 1st North, downtown Logan. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
July 12th and 13th are Amazon Prime Days. Oh, yes, you can buy lots of things on Amazon. It ships quickly right to your door. But there are some things Amazon doesn't do. They don't support our local community. They don't donate to our local clubs, organizations, youth, or schools. We should all shop local when we can. Local business is the backbone of our community. They keep us employed. In fact, small business is Cache Valley's largest employer. Local business supports and donates to our local economy. Given the opportunity, when you shop local, you find prices just as good and often better than Amazon, and with superior service. Whether you buy from Amazon or not won't make a difference in their success, but it will make a big difference in our community when you shop local.
Adams Wealth Advisors is the gold winner for financial planning in the Best of Northern Utah competition. Thank you for your vote. Putting clients first under any circumstance will bring peace of mind when working with Adams Wealth Advisors.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today. Please see adamswealthadvisors.com for more information on these recent awards.
It's the Tutus for Tatas golf tournament. Sign up now for this wildly fun, ladies-only golf tournament. Every dollar goes to breast cancer awareness and stays right here in Cache Valley. Call 750-0123. The tournament is Tuesday, July 12th at the Logan River Golf Course. Cost is just $80 and includes dinner and great prizes.
Call 750-0123.
Teams and sponsorships are also available. So come and join us for this good cause. The Tutus for Tatas golf tournament, July 12th at Logan River Golf Course, presented by the Logan River Ladies Golf Association.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Fascinating conversation happening here in the studio with our guests, Cache County Executive David Zook and Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister here in the studio. It's the County Hour. You're welcome to join us if you have a question or a comment, 753-5868. We've been, with the County Treasurer here in the studio, we've been getting really into the weeds here on property taxes, on tax notices, on valuation statements that will be going out shortly, how all this works. And it's fascinating to me, Craig, because we've all, since... Well, I mean, I don't know when this starts for most people, but let's arbitrarily, let's say 25 years old. From 25 years old on, you're a property owner, most likely.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
But today's market is
it's changing right now. Right now, maybe not 25, maybe 35. But yeah, traditionally, 25 to 30, that's when people become property owners. And then you see these each and every year. You know that the tax bill is due. You pay it. But few people understand it. Few people know what they're paying, how the dollar amount is calculated, who's asking for it and where it's going. So I really like that you have made it a focus of your office to explain some of those things, to raise the level of awareness of what this whole system is all about. It'll never be simple, right?
And it will always cost money.
That's right. Fair enough.
But as we look at our valley, the beautiful green mountains that we've got right now, and the streets and the roads and the services, many times we have to say, oh, I don't like how much my taxes are. But if individually we had to individually pay for those roads,
sure,
and individually pay for the services, I mean, we're just going through a COVID situation. I mean, if we had to come up with our own health department,
sure,
if we had to come up with our own police, our own fire,
yeah.
So as we broaden the base and we spread that out, it becomes, yes, a burden. My taxes go up too.
Sure. Sure.
I'm not exempt from any of the things that anyone else has to go through.
Does that make it weird sometimes when you see the paperwork coming through and you know
by all
you're going to be
when
writing that
rates are
check
settled,
yourself.
When the rates of the values, I'm looking at my own taxes, by all means.
Sure.
But if we were to have to individually provide those services, it just is too much money.
Sure. David and I have talked about this before. What a neighborhood, if you had a stretch of neighborhood and they wanted to fundraise just between the 10 or 12 residents on that street to repave the road, you couldn't.
Yeah, neighborhoods.
It's that expensive.
Neighborhoods actually, the residential areas, they don't, residential developments in general, they don't pay for themselves. We have to pool resources as a community. I had a mentor several years ago because I was complaining about taxes myself, and he said, I don't mind paying taxes because I like it that when I call 911, somebody shows up. I like it that we've got that nice aircraft carrier protecting our freedom. I like it that we have these smooth roads that we can drive down. It kind of changed my perspective that, it's not just going into some black hole. It's being used to provide services. Of course, that's the balance, though, is to make sure that you have good government, that you have good leaders who are being good stewards of your money. But if that's the case, then they are being put to good use.
That's where the transparency comes in, that where people can go check and say, either whether it be through, we talked earlier this year about audits and the importance of audits with county and governments and state governments too, federal governments. But that level of transparency can answer a question of like, okay, here's where the money came from, here's where it went. And with your office, Craig, this is what you're in the business of doing, right? Explaining this stuff, but also making sure it goes out. And once we have that information, we can keep an eye on our governments, on the spending. But I think oftentimes it's easy for us to forget that no, you and your neighbors probably couldn't afford to repave that road even if you pulled your resources.
This is why we have an economic development department in the county now, because economic development is key. Because if we didn't have businesses putting more tax revenue into our economy, then the tax burden on the residential properties would have to be much higher. And the tax burden on residential properties is already subsidized. It's already cut. The legislature has determined that if that's your single-family home that you live in, it doesn't need to be taxed at the same rate as other properties. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, Craig.
So if it's your primary residence, so it's where you live over 183 days, 180 or I can't remember, it's 180
that
or 183.
That seems arbitrary.
But
is that arbitrary, or is there a reason for that?
It's pretty set.
More than half the year.
More than half the year, basically.
Yeah,
okay.
360 years. Wow, a little nervous on this. Sorry about that, folks. In event, you are only charged at 55%, so you get a 40%, 45% reduction for your primary residence. So if you do have a second home or a cabin, then those are charged at 100% because it's a secondary home.
Sure.
And so it's very important that as you read the tax notice, it says this property is receiving the primary residential, and you can see the market value versus the taxable value is 55% on that first acre. And so, again, it's all about trying to be fair and follow the law, because those are important components that our office does. Another thing that we talked in the break that is so important is tracking.
Sure.
If you don't track it, how can you know where and what it's doing?
Yeah.
And that's where our office has done well in tracking, because then you can make the little changes. And then you
see trends, right?
Oh, by all means. I'll use an example. We had a trend a couple of years ago. Our tax notice went up significantly on our printing. I was able to, again, use a different printer, and we saved the county thousands of dollars, and was able to provide email, so you can now do an electronic email for your tax notice. That's another option that the county offers.
Sure.
So not only did we save money for the county, because that affects you and I, but we were able to offer more features, but we wouldn't have known that if we just went and paid the bill each month or each year. And so we track a lot of things in that regard and look for trends. And if you can't track it, there's no way to measure it. And if you can't measure it, then how do you know where you're at?
Sure. And some of the trends, I assume, the construction costs, for example, they're way up. So some trends are going to be little bubbles or temporary. But other trends, I assume you look and you're going down the hall to David's office, Mr. County Executive, look at this. Without that, you're really kind of flying blind. You're at the mercy of the people sending the county the bill.
Well, this year we just barely did our budget. So as far as departments, we have to do our budget. And my budget, I build from a zero cost up. I take an average of what my expenses have been for years, and I build that forward. And historically doing that, I've been able to put money back in and not spend as much, because if you're watching those, it is a use it or lose it.
Sure.
But at the same point, if you can save, then that puts money for other county uses that can use that funds.
Which there's no shortage of,
right?
right?
No, definitely no. We talked about in the break.
There's a lot of need out there.
Oh, by all means. If we can just reduce a little bit. But again, this year there's going to be a postage increase.
Sure.
There's a paper problem.
Yeah.
And so we're trying
and no one controls that here in the state of Utah. So
we have to budget accordingly for those type of things and do our best guess to try to get to that point. And historically, we've been successful in keeping that in line, because I hear all those complaints. So I'm very sensitive to how much those tax dollars and where those tax money goes.
That is fascinating to see. Broken down this way, and I have to say, for me, not having a head for this kind of thing, as much as I assume you do, Craig, overwhelming too. Do you ever find yourself sitting there in the office one day thinking, "Oh, too much.
Well, when
I'm going home until Tuesday."
Well, my wife will attest that I come home very late at certain points of the year when you just have to have things done, because ultimately it has to be done, and I'm the one that has to do that. And we balance to the penny, and if you balance every single day to the penny, then your months will reconcile. If your months reconcile, then your years reconcile. But that final distribution, you have to take everything back in, and then it has to be redistributed. So there's a lot of weeds that we don't want to go in there that happens behind the scene. That the rates on your car, as an example, is based on what last year's rate was, because we don't have those rates yet. And so we have to then reallocate all of those things in part of the final distribution. That's just lots of fun that, yes, does keep you up late at night. But I have to say that, again, there is help. And the amazing thing is that when you can look back in the rearview mirror and you can see that it's better than when you started.
Sure.
Whether that source is from upstairs, figuratively, or IT, or other sources, because ultimately, as an elected official, that's my job, is to make sure that we balance those things.
Sure.
And so I think it's important that the people of Cache County know that, as your treasurer, that's an important component to me, and that's who I am and what I'm trying to represent for you and us and all of us.
So I hope listeners will take advantage of this, because having these things broken down, I'm looking at it here right in front of me, and I think everyone would benefit from getting that opportunity to look at this and really slowly go through, instead of just seeing the total, making the payment, and then moving on until next year. Go through and look at some of these things, because they are really explaining things and telling you, here's where the money's going, here's why the money is what it is. It's fascinating stuff. And again, if you have a question, reach out to them, cachecounty.org. You can just click on Treasurer there and find contact information and more. But also the office, you're welcome to go in and visit as well if you have a question. We've got one last break to get to here. Our guests in the studio again, Cache County Executive David Zook and Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister will be back right after this.
You want to feel important.
You want to be part of something bigger, something that matters and can help change things.
You want to feel like you belong.
We know. We felt that way too. And that's why we did something about it.
We aren't just Army National Guard soldiers. We are normal people just like you.
But our part-time service in the Army National Guard means we get to be more.
When our communities are in need, we get the chance to stand up and do something about it.
We get to serve in our own region and help the people we call neighbors.
From the mountains of Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and Utah.
The deserts of Arizona and Nevada. The Pacific coasts of Washington, Oregon, and California.
To the wilderness of Alaska and islands of Hawaii and Guam.
We are here for our hometowns.
And together, we can make a difference.
Take on your legacy. Visit NationalGuard.com to find out more.
Sponsored by the Utah Army National Guard. Aired by the Utah Broadcasters Association and this station.
Thanks again to our guests here in the studio, Cache County Executive David Zook, Cache County Treasurer Craig McAllister. If you'd like to know more about the Treasurer's office, get questions answered and more, cachecounty.org, and appreciate their time, appreciate your time. Stay tuned. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.